Hi everybody, I'm Joey. Well, today we'll be making this pretty big armoire. It's actually going to be a linen cupboard, and it's made out of French oak, and these panels are veneered MDF. That way I didn't have to worry about things expanding and contracting and all that fun stuff. So stick around and see how I did it.
So I started by making the base plinth, and started that by making the legs. And the back legs have this big check out to fit around the skirting boards of the house. And these are the front cabriolet legs. Then over on the bandsaw I could cut out the rest of the back legs. Just cleaning up the bandsaw marks from the back feet, and then cutting out the front cabriolet legs, which is slightly more difficult, but not too bad really. And I had already made up a template for the front stretcher, so then I could just transfer it on and use that to run my bearing guide along on the router table. Then I could add a kind of large rebate on the inside top edge of the stretchers, and this allows the main body of the armoire to sit down into it. But before I could do any joinery, I had to use the beading plane to add the bead to the front edge. And I just used the largest domino that I could fit into the joinery. So I had a large piece of French oak offcut from another job, and it was just big enough to use for the base of the carcass. So planed it up and split it down the middle, and it went together pretty good for the base. Then I can get on to making the main side panels for the sides of the unit. And then using my CMT router bit set for small doors, I ran all the pieces through that I needed to and could get ready to glue it up. To dry fitting the frame, I could work out what size the panels needed to be and cut that out of a sheet of veneered MDF. Now the groove in the router bit set was just slightly too small for the veneer panel, so I had to just route off the thickness of the veneer off the back of the panel, which wasn't too much of a hassle, but while the side panels were gluing up, I could work on the joinery for the base. I added a rebate onto the dovetails so I could stand the bottom panel onto the end of the side panels and actually make the transfer. Otherwise, yeah, it was just too tall to do it any other way. I can make a large rebate in the top on the inside edge of the side panels, and that's just to allow the top curved panel to fit into. Then on to making the big mold for the top curved panel. I'm using 9mm bendy plywood, which is a bit of a trick to cut sometimes because it's laminated all with the grain running in the same direction, or most of the laminates. So I'll be using this for the mold and for the actual laminated piece. And a couple of brad nails right in the end just to stop it from slipping around too much. So I'm just screwing this together temporarily for now, so I can add all the other pieces I need to first. But I need something to actually hold the side panels in their position. So this is the front panel above the doors. I'm adding the top panel back in temporarily again, so I can add this extra piece in the back, which I've made. That's just to support the top curved panel and to give me something to nail the backing onto. And for the backing, I'm using this reeded tongue and groove. And what I'd like to do is put all my pieces together, work out the total width that I need, and then slice the same amount off each end. That way you don't end up with a skinny little awful piece at the end. So I made the doors in the same way as the side panels, except the top has to match the curve of the top. So that's what I'm doing here. And then the moment of truth was seeing if they actually fitted, which actually they were really good. I didn't really even have to do any alterations to the doors, which was a bit of a fluke. But before they were hung, I added the shelving on the inside. And I could mark the positions of the hinges on the carcass. Due to a lack of a local supplier for veneer, I have to order these full sheets if I'm going to use a generic kind of boring looking veneer. If I'm looking at using nice stuff, I'll order it from the USA direct. And I'm using contact adhesive for this veneer. It's not the best thing for veneering, but in this case it doesn't really matter. It's not going to be under any stress. No one's really ever going to touch it, so it just needs to stick there and hide the plywood. So after filling and sanding the top, I was able to veneer the top of the curved, and you can see it got stuck almost straight away, which almost ran off. It just worked, so that was good. The whole time I had been building this, I had been wondering about how I was going to do the curved moldings, and I wanted to do a couple of experiments steam bending some pieces of molding. They failed. I tried a couple of other things and ideas, but yeah, bending a molding is not ideal, certainly not with the setup I had.
Right, well, I guess it's time to talk about the bent curved scotia. I could have done this a couple of ways. The only two ways I could find out how to do it. Originally, probably would have been carved with a chisel, hammer and chisel, and then shaped, final shaping with a scratch stock. I actually found a video from Matt Cremona, and he did a similar gooseneck style scotia or crown molding, and he used a series of router jigs with his handheld router to make it, and I thought, well, I could do that, but I do have access to a CNC, so that's pretty much just a way more complicated router jig. So that's what I ended up using. It took us a whole lot of time, almost a week, to get the drawing right, to get the machine set up and actually cutting right. Even then, it's not quite exactly the right shape, but it's close enough that no one's ever going to tell the difference. So CNC naysayers, I'm sure you will have something to say about it, but for me, this was really the only way to go time-wise, because while things were happening with the CNC, I was able to carry on working with other pieces of the project. I could have spent that week carving it, but that really just wasn't in the budget for the piece. So, with that said, this is how we did it.
So the large top scotia is screwed onto this piece of plywood, which was screwed onto the CNC table. And that meant I can use that as a reference for cutting the miters, so that was fairly straightforward. Then I needed to do quite a bit of cleanup on the actual piece, as some of the tooling was not ideal. Like I said, we had lots of trouble actually cutting this, so I was pretty happy to have it at this point actually.
Well, there it is, it's all finished, apart from the finish. My client is due back sometime this weekend coming up to decide whether it's going to have a dark stain finish or natural clear coat. So fingers crossed for the clear coat, because I really don't want to have to stain this thing. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.